to start having more real conversations of like, what do we actually need to be investing in? We need to be investing in scripting and role playing and teaching a franchisee how to do it so they can teach their front line how to do it, because the front line will impact the bottom line.
Welcome to Behind the Franchise, the podcast that brings you behind the scenes with the most successful franchise marketers. I'm your host, Paul Ehlinger. On each episode, we'll be diving deep with the people who have cracked the code on franchise growth so you can learn their secrets to building a standout brand. Hey everybody, welcome back to Behind the Franchise. I'm your host, Paul Ehlinger, the founder and CEO here at Flamel AI. Today I'm super excited. We've got a fellow Kansas City in here with us, Brooke from Momentum Brands. Awesome background, and what you're doing now with Momentum is super exciting as well. So I'm super excited to have you. Maybe if you want to, give the audience just a brief background on yourself, kind of the journey you took to get where you are, and just more about Momentum.
Thanks, Paul. I would love to. As you said, I'm the founder and CEO of Momentum Brands today, which we serve as a fractional consulting agency in the franchise space for marketing specific. There were very few, we're about just over 3 years old, and there were very few fractional CMOs, if any, really, when I started. This was right after the pandemic. It was early 2021. And so for me, I knew the intelligence and experience I had gained inside of being inside of a franchisor for nearly a decade. And also, namely, it was the fastest growing franchise in the country by Inc. magazine in 2014.
I mean, that's a minor detail to include there.
Yep. So I started as the marketing director. I had come from the direct selling industry. So we had 33,000 independent representatives in this direct selling company. And so I was used to having two vastly different audiences, the representatives and the customer. And then when I got into franchising, it was basically the same model, just completely different buy-in and infrastructure. And the franchisees are smaller, the 3,000, but their investment is much larger, and their emotional state is much more volatile as a result of that investment being larger. But then you still have the local audience, and then you have your franchisees who are your top customers. So while I didn't have franchise experience to start, I learned very quickly the art of what to do and what not to do inside of franchising. There were probably 30-ish units, I want to say, that were open when I started, and we had a franchise sales organization. It was titled Boxing Club, and they sold 400 plus units in like a year and a half. I mean, it was insane, the rapid growth we experienced.
400 in a year and a half is a crazy clip.
Yeah, it was really unheard of. Like it was lightning in a bottle. And it was 2008 was when it was founded, and group fitness was really coming in the suburbs with this concept for the first time, because there was the Soul Cycles and like the New Yorks, but there wasn't really like this boxing cool unique concepts in the suburbs. And it was founded in Kansas City. And, the next locations were like Texas and Omaha and all these local Midwest markets. And it grew so rapidly. There were no systems in place. There was no marketing manual, no brand guide. There was a team of one, which was myself. All these franchisees who had opinions about their business, understandably, but there was no banks in the river. There was just a flood of information and activity, and there was no streamlining of information. So one of the first things I did was really come in and just, the manuals and the guides, even a brand standards guide. Like there wasn't even a one pager of here's our logo and marks and colors and fonts. Like, because think about all our customer today is an emerging brand, and think about all of these emerging brands who have a phenomenal concept and maybe a logo from 99 Designs or Upwork or something. And that's really it. And then they have this massive growth because you have an opportunity to really hit the ground running in a category, in an industry that needed disruption. And that's what Tidal did. And then we had to really get caught up very quickly, in fact, overnight, on the systems, tools, processes. It took a couple of years, and then we did rebrands and repositioning and mission, vision, values work, and focus groups and quantitative and qualitative, and all of this research to really understand the female customer. And that 35-year-old female was our primary target. And this was a boxing concept where people would think, I don't want to get hit in the face, and I'm not a man who wants to go slug somebody. So overcoming objections was something we had to deal with instant.
Mm.
And before the customer ever even, when they heard our name, we had to also say, it's fitness, not fighting. It's XYZ,
Fitness,
So
not fighting. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
good 3
yeah.
words right there.
Yep. So we really cracked the code on first time offers, on the membership pre-sale, on helping franchisees with their rent plan, on brand compliance from the marketing side, on putting new vendors and resources in place, on growing the business while taking care of the franchisees and attracting the local customers and growing the infrastructure of the
Yeah.
franchisor. There are so many different arms of the business at the same time.
Yep.
And, that experience led me to eventually become president of the brand in early 2021. And it was the exact same time that I became pregnant with my first and only child at this point in my life.
Just a little
And
bit of stress and pressure.
and they say stressed out moms create stressed out babies, and I'm like, all right, well, I
gotta calm down.
I gotta I gotta take a moment because first of all, I'm assuming our audience here is all in franchising, and I do not know a non-stressed out person in franchising.
That's fair.
Truly, the amount of pressure and lack of resources and lack of funding and lack of team and lack of hours in a day to get everybody what they need is compounding. It keeps you up at night. And so I had to make a decision. I looked at, for the first time, I had achieved both of my life's goals and desires.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The exact same month, at the exact same time.
That's crazy.
In my life.
Yeah.
It is crazy. A wild, I'm a big manifester, and I could tell you some stories in my career and personal life, but it's almost as if I knew this was going to happen in this perfect storm. And I'm deeply spiritual, and I did a lot of self-reflecting, and I thought, what else could be true in this scenario? And what else do I need to know and look at? And what else could I be curious about? And I really looked at, like, if I were going to spend, because in franchising, it's not a 40-hour gig, it's 60 to 80 hours sometimes in a week.
Yeah.
And you're always on call. And I thought, if I were to look at 80 hours in this brand that I've given almost a decade to, and blood, sweat, and tears, and felt so deeply responsible and loyal and committed to that work. And then I look at my family, of which I now was responsible for growing and nurturing, and felt deeply committed to and loyal and ingrained with charting a new course and doing something different. The emotional weight of that decision was something I did not ever expect to be as difficult as it was. And then it was so clear to me when I knew I needed to seek growing my family and growing that brand of my life. I was able to step away and do it with grace. And I still am friends with franchisees today and former team members. And I think I always say to leave a company better than you found it in any place in your career. And so I've always, and I still honor it's truly the best workout I've ever done in my life. And it's a really great brand. But it also, that opportunity provided me the ability to choose a different path. And it had to have been something as great as getting pregnant for me to really ever make a decision like that, to leave. And then I got to start my own brand. And look, 3 years later, my life is so fundamentally different in such a profound way. And we've helped 19 brands in 3 years. And
that's awesome.
The demand for the intelligence of what we were able to do inside of Title is so, like, the compounding interest of what I'm able to provide people today in a way that I am still present with my son. I drive him to preschool. I pick him up from preschool.
That's awesome.
I'm not on my phone when we're making and cooking dinner and eating dinner and enjoying each other. Like, I'm able to live the life that I always had desired and arguably provide more value and emotional intelligence and human capital into businesses than even before.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that. You covered a lot there in the opening.
I think it was welcome to the life of Brooke Budke.
It was a fantastic opening. I mean, it's 10 out of 10. I wanna start off by saying, laying some credence to your work at Tidal. So I won't name names. One of the Tidal franchisees, they're a multi-brand franchisee. We work with them on their other brand and not Tidal, because she consistently compliments how good the marketing system is at Tidal. And
awesome.
They've been involved since you were there, and so I would lay credence to your work there. So you absolutely did make a very positive change, and it's not every day we talk to a franchise that's like,
oh yeah, we love everything corporate does for us. So
Well,
that's awesome.
I can promise you,
They
half
don't
of the
love
system
everything.
did not say
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
That's
nope.
fair. You can't please
Yeah,
everybody at all times.
yep.
I love that. And so I think maybe diving deeper into one portion of this, but there's like 2 or 3 points you kind of brought up there. One of them being kind of the way you've chosen to lead your life, both personal and professional. I love that concept. But the first one I'd love to dive into is kind of taking over, becoming a brand president at Tidal,
Mhm.
coming from a marketing discipline, right?
Sure,
And I
yeah.
think especially when you address like, hey, how do we reach 35-year-old women in the fitness space with a brand that is a fighting brand, right? Like when you see Tidal Boxing, the first thing I think of is like Tidal Boxing Club, like I'm in gloves boxing Muhammad Ali or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you think coming from that side, that vertical, influenced how you acted as brand president and maybe contributed to the growth of the company?
It's a great question, Paul. And one of the most frequented pieces of advice I give to anybody in marketing, and especially anybody in marketing who's seeking to grow the business, grow the company, grow their own self in the business, is that you must be a product of the product.
Yeah.
And for me, I knew that I was going to succeed at my job because I was a 35-year-old female who was obsessed with fitness.
Yeah.
I knew what I needed, what I wanted, what I was willing to spend on it, where I would go, what I was influenced by, which types of people I would bring, at what types of workouts, at what times of day.
Yeah.
I knew and became so obsessed with this that when I'm in the grocery store checkout, I'm looking at the magazines and seeing what storylines are relevant to women my age so then I can connect with them on social media, to living and breathing it every day.
Yeah.
Now, there is becoming obsessed with the product. And this is not an or conversation, it's an and.
Yep.
You also have to become obsessed with the system the franchise needs.
Yep.
And those are so different. And it is rare to have a highly creative marketer also understand the operational workflow that's needed in marketing.
Yeah.
And so I think where my ability to rise in the business came from was, number one, I have insane grit and
Yeah.
passion, and like, I don't take no for an answer. I will find another way and knock on a different door. Like you have to be relentless.
Yep.
But number two, I understand how systems, communication, and resources need to be in place to streamline communication for the masses.
Yeah.
And those things are usually don't go hand in hand in marketing. Normally it's like an operations person who's like, marketing sucks, just make something pretty
Yeah.
and I will roll it out.
Yeah.
But instead, our head of ops and me, like I texted him yesterday, when can I see you over Christmas break? Like I have something I want to run by you about our business. He became my greatest confidant and business colleague and yin and yang. And so like operations and marketing, like we made all the decisions together. So I understood what it was going to do to the point of sale system and to the scripting and to the staffing and the front line as much as I knew what the customer needed and the hook to get them in the lead flow.
Yeah.
So I think when you talk about marketers, being presidents and growing in businesses, it's rare to have just a hyper creative person fulfill that role.
Yeah.
It's also rare for a very creative person to last inside of a franchise brand if they don't understand processes.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
No, absolutely. I think it's kind of this ideology that like the way you talked about it, right? You're obsessed with product and you're obsessed with system. And then you lived the unfair advantage is you had the lived experience of your exact customer, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's potentially a differentiator. Like normally when you think about a marketer, I don't know how many of them would say I'm obsessed with the product and I'm obsessed with the system, right?
Very few.
Yeah, I think, and it's actually, this is a very interesting callback. So I think I introduced you to Jessica Yarmy. We did an interview with her as well. She said a very similar thing. She was like, I'm an early 30s, mid 30s woman. Marketing Club Pilates was her situation. And they also had very aggressive growth and did the thing. And I think that's fascinating. I mean, it's like that lived experience where you get to implement it is really powerful. I'm curious how you then do, manage that side of the creativity, right? Because I feel like marketing, you get into marketing because you are creative, right? And you can see the world in a different way. You can communicate with people effectively. How did you try to maintain that level of creativity as you were really focused on the product, and the systems you were building for success?
So I got very bullish about my calendar and how I spent my time
Mhm.
and where I spent it. And then eventually we did hire team members. And then once you can start to delegate tasks and the systemizing and teaching them, usually junior marketers don't have franchise experience.
Mm.
So there's a steep learning curve for a marketer to understand the culture of a franchise system and why to do things that way. And I could teach people that,
Yeah.
but you can't always teach the creativity. And so I would always hire creatives and teach them franchising
Yeah.
versus the other way around, because franchising is an archaic system that is the same and no matter which brand you're in.
Sure.
And so you can teach that, but then it's difficult to find a creative who can think outside the box. So I also hired marketers in our up and coming demographic.
Yeah.
So the younger demo who we wanted to attract in the next decade.
Yep.
And also understanding, we could always speak to the older demographic with ease because they're influenced by the younger, specifically with beauty and health and wellness.
Yep.
But I also looked at attracting people who knew things that I didn't know about social media, about TikTok, about blogging, about content creation,
Yep.
about email marketing, about lead list generating. And, separate from that, it might just be who I am, but I listen to podcasts and read books and get influence from outside of the industry every single day.
Yep.
It is how I spend my no extra time. If I'm driving in the car, if I'm doing the laundry, if I'm putting on my makeup, I will literally listen to a podcast to prepare for a podcast from some of my favorite interviews.
Yeah.
And I listen to how they control the conversation and get the narrative to their audience because I want to be like the audience that I'm wanting to attract.
Yep.
So part of it is just modeling. And that's the beautiful part of franchising. Everything is modeling success clues.
Yeah.
Clues are there. The breadcrumbs are there. We have to look at and teach somebody, how do you get clues from other arms of businesses that are doing it better and faster and smarter than you? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Just take their wheel and apply it to your paint.
Yeah. There's very few things that actually need like recreation of wheel.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we think about that on the technology side all the time. Where it's like we do push the limits of technology. We're building new product that doesn't exist yet, but at the end of the day, you still have to solve this problem. Right? And there's a lot of things that surround that problem, like how you get a solution to them, or like how you operationalize that solution. That's the exact same thing, right? And so I brought up HubSpot before. I think that's one I look up to. Like they executed content marketing on a grand scale to grow their product. Like I'm jealous of it, right? And that means I want to go do the same thing. So I think I live that exact same experience. And it's really powerful. It saves you time, right? I'd rather not make the mistakes other people have already made.
Yeah. And hold the promise of never graduating.
Yeah.
Like, there are always new skills that you can learn and resources that you can tap into. And you can learn more from an intern than you can a CEO in many cases. Yeah. Because a CEO could be weathered and tired and lack personal connection as much as the intern understands the outliers and who to pull in next. So both are equally valuable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And maybe one more question down this path. You kind of brought up, hey, you were really trying to target a younger generation that could become a customer in 10 years. I think that's a time frame not a ton of brands are focusing on, right? And I'm curious, was that always the method? Like in the very beginning days, were you thinking 10 years down the line, or were you like, crap, we need to get one more franchisee, we need to get 10 more clientele? Did you always think with that range? Because I think that's something that's awesome, right? It's a cool opportunity to have the ability to do that.
I'd be lying too if I said yes.
I appreciate the honesty. Yeah, that's what I need. Yeah.
Okay, so Paul, I was 30 years old and just thrown into the fire. Literally, my first day, the head of product and training looked at me and said, "You're the new head of marketing?"
Good luck.
I said, "Yeah." And he literally said, "All right, good luck."
Yeah.
Like, first of all, thanks for the challenge because nothing.
Yeah, you've got a chip now. There's a chip on the shoulder.
Like nothing just, turns
Shout
my
out that
gears
head
on.
of product. You really sparked a career here.
Yeah. Thank you. Right? Like, thank you. Yeah, correct. So ask me the question again. Now I lost my track.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's so good.
You kind of mentioned like really focusing on a younger generation and how like that's your client 10 years in the future. And my point was just that's potentially unusual for some brands and also a really cool opportunity. Speak to that.
Okay. So when you are starting out, let's say the first 30 units, you are thinking about nothing else than keeping those 30 units happy.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. You say yes to all 30 of them for all of their needs.
Yeah.
And then you have confusion and cats running wild. And if you can think of trying to herd cats or roosters to get them to go into an area and they get angry and hiss, and it's not pretty. No. So first, you rarely will think long-term in marketing. Now, if you are hiring somebody for marketing, or you are the founder who's also in marketing in an early franchise brand, you are signing 10-year franchise agreements.
Yeah.
You are also understanding and need to understand that the consumer today, the 35-year-old female used to be the highest spending demographic.
Yep.
5 years ago. Okay, think of 2019. The world is great. Everything is normal. People are doing what they're doing. Pandemic hits.
Yep.
All of the patterns and habits shifted. And if you look at, Paul, some of these industries, from group fitness to lashes to blowouts to waxes to any of these, they're seeing, if they're not panicking, it's because they're innovating their product, but they're seeing massive disruption because the female left the workforce, went home, created completely different patterns. She used to be chief spending of the household. Now she's like running an operation internally, has very different patterns and habits, and it's impacted the consumer today, 5 years later. And you were seeing a massive decline in all of those industries.
Yeah.
You were also seeing an incline on wellness, recovery, like more holistic training, and more holistic thinking and living, and services and home services, because people are, reinventing their home and cleaning it, et cetera, because both parents are working from home.
Yeah, everybody's there.
Yeah, but 10 years ago, the female consumer, that 35-year-old, was it, and she was always the spender. Okay, now look at the disruption in the last 5 years. Do you want to know, in fitness, the leading spender is an 18-year-old male, and it's at a high volume, low cost HVLC gym who has free content, and he's going to train himself.
Yeah. I
I
absolutely believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's no longer this 35-year-old female who has 3 boutique gym memberships and works out on her lunch break and in the morning and on her way home to pick up the kids. So the patterns change, and you can't predict the patterns, but you do need to look at the sandwich effect of, like, who's your target demo and who's on the outskirts. The younger will be the next spender, and how do you get them into the fold earlier? And then how do you retain the 10-year gap, difference on the top?
Yeah.
So when you ask the question about, well, did I always think that way? No, I learned through failure to start thinking that way. I learned also now, because we have nearly 20 brands in 3 years' time. And so it's so much easier to spot the trends and to see what the consumer is doing, and to have the intelligence of a much wider lens of how they need to market. But very few people even know their top core target.
Yeah.
If you were to say, who is your target audience to franchisors with 30 units or less, they'll say average household income of 150,000, of 30 to 40-year-old woman who's also married.
Yeah, there's no persona based.
It's a lot of guessing.
Yeah.
And Gen Z they're maxing out their credit card every single month.
That's crazy.
They're the top spenders in the economy today, and people don't know how to speak to them.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, lazy millennials. No. Now, if you are not focusing on a Gen Z acquisition strategy of adding value and getting them into your business, they don't want a discount, they want an experience, and they want value from the brand, and they want to know and understand the policies, the founder,
what it stands for,
the positioning. They care about so many different things. They care about race and politics and the government and the world and the climate so much different and very loudly. And so you think about, okay, how do you attract your target demo? Well, number one, who is your core primary? And number two, who is your up and coming spender? And then who are the people we want to retain? Yeah. It's a really good habit and practice for a marketer to do.
Yeah. I'm curious. So this is something I've done a little research around. I was considering starting a company in this space. The idea of like partnership money management. And so I think people combine their finances far less often and far less quickly than they used to when people were getting married at younger ages. And so I talk to people of my generation. I'm 32, and they'll be dating somebody for 4 years and still not have combined finances. They'll be married and not combine finances. Have you seen that kind of affecting buying decision making and how that's happening? Kind of, I'm in the millennial generation, but I assume that's got to affect household spending habits.
Well, the dinks, the dual income,
I am
no
a
kids.
dink, so I'm very familiar. Yep.
Yeah. So the average home, like to first time home buyer now is 38.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
like that's wild. And people are also getting married and having children in their late 20s, early 30s now, which also changes how they spend.
Mm.
Now, in most cases, if they're waiting to get married or have children, they might have more disposable income
Yeah.
when they're in that stage of life, if they're in their careers. But also, like, attracting a dink is completely different than a mom with kids and
Yeah.
pain points. So if you have, like, yeah, know that the trends are there, but it does also disrupt the community and the marketplace because we have brands in pet, in sports, in home healthcare, and nannying, in the bar industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like the bar industry, their entire audience is Gen Z, and they want them to come 2 or 3 times a week.
Right.
And
It's
then
it's
the
commitment.
millennials and Gen X would come maybe once a week or once a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're looking for the repeat customers. This sports company is actually their target demo is a male executive who wants to
Yeah.
come in and use, create a secondary hobby for
Yeah.
them. Then we have a good energy tea and beverage company who their Fran Dev positioning is they want to go into college markets
Interesting.
and they want to hire college students to be their employees, and they want to attract and present good energy to people even in the drive-through
Yeah.
based on the people they hire. And then their audience coming through the drive-through is like the people they hire.
Yeah. And
So yeah, you're seeing it. You're seeing the spending, you're seeing the trends, we're seeing it in these concepts, especially post-pandemic emerging franchise brands. I think the brands that are struggling the biggest are the ones that had huge scale before the pandemic, because it's like turning a cruise ship. And
right.
it takes so long to turn it in the other direction. And there's so many moving parts. That's like spaghetti woven together from the point of sale system to the CRM to the franchisee sentiment to the internal team.
Oh, yeah.
So they just can't pivot and innovate like the emerging brands can.
Yeah. Chris Stewart from Bloom and Blinds was talking about that, how like being an emerging brand allows you to leverage new technologies faster, make decisions faster. And that's the unique opportunity, right? That's the game-winning opportunity you have to disrupt a massive brand. And you've got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and they're going hard in AI, and they're doing something, they want to be on the first mover spot for franchise brands. So they're also thinking younger and faster.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think great transition. You brought it up, having this like 10,000 foot view, right? Working with 19 brands over 3 years in the emerging space. Let's talk to that something. Like what is, universally working for brands that you've seen? What's maybe more industry specific or doesn't work for everybody? And maybe the highlights from, 3 years of your life's work that you could provide in a couple of minutes.
Okay, so universally working, do you want to talk franchise development, consumer marketing, grand opening, or local store?
Let's keep it on marketing. I think we've been down that topic.
Those are all marketing.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. So here's a quick. I'm gonna ask you a question again.
Please.
So, and all franchise brands need these same 4 lanes in franchise marketing. First, you need consumer marketing. What does the entire consumer population think of you, know of you, your brand position, your essence, your values, your belief systems, whether they're a franchise candidate or a local customer?
Yep.
That's consumer marketing. Think of it as the franchisor framework.
Yep.
Then you have franchise development marketing.
Yep.
How do you attract a potential franchisee candidate to come in and want to buy and become part of your brand and live out your legacy? Those completely different set of strategies and tactics on attracting them. Then you have grand opening marketing. And those are, how do you get and teach a franchisee how to acquire and build a list before they're open and give them compelling marketing strategies, budgets, step-by-step, paint-by-numbers guides on how to go do it to build the prototype of what you are selling.
Yep.
And their location. And then you have local store marketing, which is the 365 always on marketing. How do we create the path to profitability for a franchisee, annual marketing calendar, tools and resources for ongoing once they're open? So when you said what are some similarities between the brands and marketing, which those 4 things every single franchise brand has to have. If you don't have those 4 identified, then you're missing a quarter or half of the entire infrastructure you need to run the business.
Yeah.
So when originally I was saying those, because I was going to ask you the question, which of those 4 do you want to know what
Okay.
all of them are doing? But then when I started sharing it, I was thinking, actually, that is the answer to the question, because
Yeah.
that is the through line that all of them have.
Yeah, they have to do all 4 of those to build that successful
Yeah.
system.
But
Yeah.
within one of those, is there a category or a topic that you are curious about most?
I love the ideology of kind of the consumer marketing bit, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like build your brand so that people know who you are when they're approaching you. Because I think as emerging brands, and we work with a lot of emerging brands, they don't know who the heck you are. You're gonna have almost everyone's a new user, right? And everybody's figuring this out. And we've kind of spent some time talking through how the consumer is shifting. And so what are you seeing, tactically that's working for these emerging brands as they approach their consumer marketing?
So excellent question. And when we onboard a brand, we always start with an audit, and we get the lay of the land for like, what do you do? What do you not do? What do you have? What do you not have? Tell us where the skeletons are buried. What do we need to avoid? Right.
Yeah. Like, no judgment zone. We need to know everything.
Yeah. It's kind of like the PR team. Like if you have a celebrity, like you got to tell me, like, what are we avoiding? Know what you did. Yeah. Yes. So we start with the audit. That the thing we always start with is consumer marketing. Every brand needs brand dev, grand opening, local store, but we never do any of those 3 tracks until we do consumer, because when you ask the questions early on about, my unique path of being head of marketing into president.
Yep.
It relates to that so deeply because today, a brand narrative, somebody needs to say what you do when you are not in the room.
Yeah.
That is your brand versus what a marketer wants to say to you and wants to do in the ad. So a brand is the positioning and the story of your raving fans. And we don't want just awareness of a brand. We want to create raving fans. And if you think of a fanatic, like I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm a Royals fan.
I'm also a Chiefs fan.
Okay.
Let's go. I'm also a Royals fan. Not a lot of those out here where I live, so I love to see them.
Yes. So if you think of Patrick Mahomes, like we have become now the Patriots, Brady. People hate us just because of this franchise success, and like, oh, the reps. And the man is just a phenom athlete.
He just
wins. He wins, and he practices and trains harder than anything I've ever seen before. Like truly, the commitment level, the coaching, the leadership, the camaraderie, the fans of Kansas City defend all day long. They scream. It is the loudest stadium in the NFL. They will stand there shirtless, painted with the Chiefs in 0-degree weather. Like when you think of a fanatic, and you think of whether you're a Chiefs fan or not, you think of your favorite sports team.
Yeah.
I went to the University of Kansas, and Kansas Jayhawks basketball is life.
It's crazy.
Okay, it is. So I am blessed with, the Chiefs, the Royals had a good season, but then Kansas basketball. You're standing in Allen Fieldhouse, and there is no place like this. And everywhere I go, if you meet a Jayhawk fan, the fog, Allen, come on. And so when you think of a fanatic, it is true for you. You have to create raving fans, raving fanatics that will scream your name to every single person that they know and speak of in the best way.
Yeah.
And this is the marketing that is missing today, because that is a human connection, a relationship, a positioning, a set of beliefs of which you clearly define, your team clearly knows, and you draw the line in the sand and you say, we are this, we are not this. And the essence of positioning is sacrifice.
Yep.
If you are going to position yourself as a franchise brand who does X, and your franchisee asks you to do A, B, C also.
Yeah. You're like, we do X.
You have to say no.
Yeah.
We do X, and we do X better than anything in the world. Yeah. And our commitment is to that first and foremost. And when we have excellent operational excellence across the board, we will innovate. But until then, go back to X. Yeah. And so you have to be willing to sacrifice saying yes to so many other things and branding to become the industry leader, the first mover position, and to create these raving fans who are like, oh my gosh, I would do anything for that company.
Yeah.
I love that company, and I don't know them, but I feel like they know me. And I'm going to refer people. And some of the best franchisees in the Title Boxing Club system had 60% member referral.
That's wild.
60% of the new leads walking through the door was because it was a word of mouth from an existing member, which meant
crazy.
The ones that were going to succeed took care of their existing audience at the highest level, better than any place in town.
Yeah.
So they brought their tax accountant, their friend, their barber, their mother,
whomever,
whomever.
everybody. 60%, it's everybody. Yeah.
It's everybody. And guess what they had to spend on digital ads?
None.
None.
I mean, yeah.
Right. So today
it's like
people
you decide you want to grow a little bit more at that point, as opposed to you need to spend to grow.
When you have an offer and you want to throw some extra fuel on the fire, but come on, like brands today will say, oh, but I have an SEO strategy and I have digital leads coming in. Okay, that's like, great. You're paying your electricity bill. Like that's a mandatory.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I'm sorry, but like
that's the cost to exist in a digital world is how I would describe it, right?
Completely. Yeah. And people need to start having more real conversations of like, what do we actually need to be investing in? We need to be investing in scripting and role playing and teaching a franchisee how to do it so they can teach their front line how to do it, because the front line will impact the bottom line.
Yeah. There's a nice little tagline for you.
Thank you. If they are not smiling, if they are not on their phone, if they have a clean facility, if they say thank you, if they say please, this is the bare minimum. And it is not expected today in the consumer landscape. It has gotten so poor. Everyone turns around and says, here, rate my service. Would you like to tip me?
Yeah.
And you're like,
for what?
No, I would not like to tip you for pouring my single cup of tea.
For a very average experience, yeah.
Yes. And so if you are looking at consumer, and what has to be true is you have to deliver an experience that is unmatched in your industry. And then you have to clearly define it for your staff, for your franchisees, and you have to tell them every single time you're on a call with them, I want to bring it back to the mission of the company.
Yeah.
I want to tell you that we are acting in your best interest and ours. This is about the mission of the company.
Yeah.
And people should be able to recite the mission. It should be a one sentence, simple to-be statement.
Yeah.
That they can recite over and over and over again, and that the front line also knows what their mission is.
Yep.
That's why Chick-fil-A is successful. You go through the line and they say, my pleasure.
My pleasure.
Every
time. So much so that it's like a colloquial joke now, right? But I'm like, that's the strength of it. It got so mainstream that people made fun of it. That's a good problem to have, right?
It's a good problem.
Yeah.
They also only allow owner-operators.
Yep. I mean, you have to be bought in, period.
And it has to be your primary job.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at success and
speaking of, you have to do X and you say no to ABC. I mean, that is the purest form of that in franchising.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I think to people out there, it's great hearing this. It's a hard thing to get to. You have to iterate to get to that point. You don't like write the mission down the first day you start a business, and that's the mission, right? Like I think looking introspectively, it's something we're still building with our company, with Flamel, because it is that. It's like, what are the 2 sentences you want to come out of one of your users' mouths that can be repeated everywhere and everybody is consistent with it, right? And it's a very hard thing to get to, and I think it's something we're massively iterating on as well. So I think that's a resonant point you're kind of making there for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of gearing towards maybe a little bit of a left field here, but you brought up like the influence of your personal life and how that kind of helps you in what you're doing today. And like, I'm a firm believer in that. My wife is my favorite person in the world. I think she makes me a better boss, a better founder, a better entrepreneur, because my time outside of work is very valuable to me, right? And so like, I think it forces intentionality and it forces attention. You know, maybe talk to how that's been working for you. You're 3 years in now, you know, to this kind of decision break point in your career, right? Where you left it and started momentum. Like, how has your mindset shifted, you know, once you made that big decision? Because I think it's a big, scary decision that you talked about. You know, you talked about the benefits of it, but maybe functionally, like day to day, how does it impact how you're working or how you're kind of building your company?
So first of all, I would like to say that you're a raving fan of your wife.
Oh, yeah.
The way that you just described her, to tie it back to raving fans. And that's really nice to hear. And that is what you want employees and franchisees to say about the business in the same regard. So it's a great, perfect example of like being a promoter for the things and people you love.
Yeah.
She's also clearly pouring into you, which you stated. So as a franchise brand, like pouring into your franchisees doesn't always mean saying yes to create the raving fan. So transitions, I would say being an entrepreneur, you have to make really tough decisions every single day.
Yeah.
And being in franchising, especially in marketing, I will say to all of my fellow marketers out there who are inside of a franchise brand.
Yeah.
I will pray for you because it is a brutal role.
Yeah.
It is the expectations placed upon the marketing team to sustain growth.
Yeah.
could be seen as unfair when you look at it, but marketing almost always takes the blame when things go wrong inside of a franchise brand and never gets the credit when they go right.
Yeah.
So when you are hiring, I would say you need to hire marketers who are really tough.
Yeah. Resilience
And have grit and who are comfortable having hard conversations. And so if they are not, you can train them on that. Like How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of the greatest books in terms of like relating to people. But making hard decisions. So I made a lot of hard decisions at Tidal, like day in, day out, every single day. I've had a not easy life and road. And so I've faced difficulty prior. However, I cried about my decision to leave for months.
Yeah.
It was like a divorce for me.
I mean,
because
it is like you were there for a decade, right? Like that's a whole
yes,
life.
I was the face of the brand. I was on national news for the brand at least a dozen times on Fox News in New York. I personally was responsible for the mission, vision, values, working with a phenomenal agency, like rolling it out, redesigning the business. I'm a trained copywriter, so I wrote every headline myself, trained the team. Then
your identity was tied into this, right? Like they were intermixed.
Yes. Like I was the product. I did the classes. I did the workouts. I understood personal training. I worked with personal training. I did every part of it because it became really, that's why I was so, what I believe why I was so great at the business was because I was so invested in it. Now, so when I knew it was time to go, I likely knew it was time to go before I made the decision.
Sure.
Right. So you have those like that
it builds in the background. It's never just a day of decision, right?
Yes. That pit in your stomach where you're like, something doesn't feel right here. Something feels off here. So one of my top 2 questions to always ask is what else could be true? And once you have that answer, what else could be truer or more true than what you just stated? So if you are facing a decision of, man, I'll use a random example. I don't want to fire this person because I'm worried that I'll have to pick up their slack on the team and I won't know how to do the job. Okay, well, what else could be true?
You could also be good at that.
You could also be great at that. You could also have somebody else internally step up and say that they want to do it. Okay, what else could be more truer than that? You could hire somebody else who has a better skill set than that. You could learn what needed to stop being done.
Yeah, you could realize that you wrote the job description wrong and it's not even the role you need, right?
Yeah. Okay, so when I was looking at decisions of like, is this the time to go? I was like, well, what else could be true? What if it was? What if it wasn't? What if it was the time? I had always wanted to, I'm a brand person. I had always wanted to start my own brand. I have, a table of contents, as we've talked about, for the best-selling marketing book that's going to hit the shelves in 2025. I wanted to do all these other things, and I had never given myself permission.
Yeah.
Because I was so deeply rooted in the loyalty and connection to where I was. And so if I stepped back and I said, well, what else could be true? I could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And that in itself was terrifying. Because I was like, well, which way?
The luxury of choices, in my opinion, is scarier than like the difficulty of scarcity. Because scarcity forces solutions, whereas the luxury of choice opens up too many, and the onus is then on you solely, right?
There is a quote that is so true, and it says, your brain is designed to seek and choose a familiar hill than an unfamiliar heaven.
That's never heard it, but it resonates.
And if you think about it, you're like, because it's like, the enemy is better than the enemy you don't, right? So you think of, I'm going to go off topic from marketing for just a second and talk about human needs. So I do a lot of personal development research, studying. I go to Tony Robbins seminars. I have a results coach through his program. Like we have a marriage coach. I have a spiritual coach. I believe in like what you pour your time into is what you get better at. So the reason I say that is Tony, the very first event I went to, I learned that there are 6 human needs that everybody has.
Interesting.
The need for certainty, the need for variety or spontaneity,
Sure.
The need for significance, the need for love and connection, the need for growth, and the need for contribution. So when you are making a decision and you are afraid to make it, it is because where you are currently is still meeting your top need.
Yeah.
So for me, my top 2 needs are growth and love and connection. And believe it or not, growth is higher for me by a fraction than love and connection. Because if I'm not personally growing, I feel like
you're stuck, you're lost.
I do. I feel like a tailspin is like, it's not good.
Yeah.
So I know if I seek personal growth first, love and connection is a natural flow for me.
Yeah.
What I was staying for and what I didn't realize was I was meeting my need of certainty.
Mm.
And I'm not somebody who needs a lot of certainty.
Yeah.
But there is a part of us who needs all 6 of them. They're just in different orders. So when you look at the reasons why you're staying versus doing something different, like, well, if I tapped into my need for contribution and growth and love and connection, I meet all 3 of those needs every single day, 10 out of 10 in the business that I'm doing. I also have variety, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I have about 5% of certainty in my life right now.
And that's okay.
And it is for me, but it is not for usually a alpha male who seeks significance and certainty and is data driven or results driven, because they're like, if I could be certain that the numbers look this way, then this will happen. Yeah.
It's a controlled outcome, right?
Yeah. Controlled outcome. So I didn't realize why it was so difficult for me was because I was certain, even though I knew in my heart it was time to go, it was certain that I knew what to expect where I was.
Yeah.
So once I was like, okay, for me, Lord, God, the universe, spirit, I'm going to give you back the certainty. And I'm going to place that in you because I know that the only thing for me that's certain is my faith. And if I give that back and I go seek the other ones, I'm expecting for him to provide certainty in what's ahead, because you don't know what's ahead. And this is leaving a job, getting a promotion, starting a franchise business, closing a franchise business, any of it, all of them, all of these things happen all day long. And so if you're stuck in the decision, you look at what needs is it meeting? Yeah. And are those my top needs? And certainty was like last on my list. I'm like, why am I stuck in this? Like I'm like cycling on trying to be certain with an outcome versus like just lean into the things that you know and love, and the certainty will follow. Yeah. And so it was highly emotional. But then when I took a step back and I said, okay, I need to like whiteboard this out, and like that's why I think therapy is great, results coaching is great, working with a consultant like myself, because to give you an outside point of view is so key in life. But I was able to see that I needed to let go of certainty. And on the flip side of making that difficult decision, I have flexibility and freedom. Yeah. So much more impact and value, significantly more revenue in the business, satisfaction, happy, raving fans, complete control, which for me, like I'm good with taking a lot on, like I can manage a lot. So like I can do our LinkedIn and our email and our website and our SEO and our content, so like I've learned so many new skill sets. Today I met with 4 bookkeepers. That's crazy. To like help our business on financial reporting and projections and modeling for next year, because it's like, okay, that's not my top skill set. Could I hire somebody else who has it? Yeah. Like, okay, absolutely. I'm gonna go do what I do really well, and I'm gonna let somebody else be an expert at that thing.
Yeah, turns out 3 financial statements can be done by other people.
Yep. So, and I even learned that from you the first time we spoke about what else could be true in like the VC world and like all this other stuff. So, to answer the question simply put, I would say making difficult decisions gets easier when you do the internal work. Yeah. On what needs are being met by both options. Yeah. And then you get to see it from, you get to step back out of this emotional state and say like, okay, now that I see it, which one do I want to choose in that, and not be attached to the outcome? Yeah. And you know what? Okay, great. Let's say it wouldn't have worked and this business wouldn't have worked. Okay, well then I would have just gone and worked for another franchise business. Yeah. Like, ask yourself the question, what's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah. And if you can stomach the worst thing that could happen,
yeah, you can pretty much do anything you want.
Pretty much do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the fundamental belief system I hold, is that like I've lived in more difficult scenarios than anything that could happen to me in the future. Like my wife and I have worked incredibly hard to get to the place we are in life now, so that we can take these risks and we can burden these, difficult things. It's the privilege of burden, right? Like it's the privilege to be able to take on a difficult task of creating a business and to jump away from a very secure thing. So,
but Paul, that just speaks so much about your point of view in life, because you could look at hardship and challenges and let them defeat you, or you could say, bring it on. Yeah. Let's figure out a way to do it.
Yeah,
And
and
once
it
you've
doesn't mean
done
you're
it,
not going to get defeated sometimes. You will
yeah,
get defeated,
agreed.
but it's okay because you just, in theory, get better, and hopefully don't get defeated every time. Oh no, we lost you for a second. I I can hear you, and it says recording on mine. Does it say recording on your end still? We're back.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Does it still say recording on your side now?
It does, yes.
Okay.
So I was praying that we didn't lose.
We'll do some editing magic and make it happen on the back end. It'll all be good.
Okay, great.
Oh goodness, jumping back in. Maybe we just we're also at time. We can I'll just kind of wrap through. I'll be like, oh great point, and then we can just get into some of these like closing quick hitter questions if that's good for you.
Yeah.
All right, this is the awkward part. I always feel awkward talking to a fake audience. Oh yeah. Anyway, this is awesome. I love to jump to a final little section I like to do here. Just some quick hitters. I think this show's been fantastic. I feel like we went deep on a very few things, but I think it was a much more meaningful conversation that way. So I appreciate that very much so. But jumping to a few quick hitters. Idea 15 seconds. Give us the exact response you're thinking. No right answer. What's the last book you read, or the last book you'd recommend to somebody?
Well, I mentioned already on this podcast episode How to Win Friends and Influence People. I would say that is a game changer for anybody, especially a young staff in franchising.
Yeah.
One of the most recent books that rocked my world was Codependent No More. And it is the most fascinating read for an achiever, because I am somebody who thought codependency meant needy, clingy, like whiny, and it is absolutely not that. There is a lot of enabling and how to manipulate to get what you want in codependency. And it is a book that I set it down and was like, I feel like
my life is different now. There's a pre this book and a post this book.
Yep, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, Codependent No More. And this is going to be a really difficult question for you. I'm going to force you to only give one. Which franchise brand are you most excited about right now?
Which one of ours?
Maybe I don't know. That might cause some discord outside of yours, if that would cause too much discord, or if you're willing to. Which one of yours? I don't want you to disappoint anybody.
Okay, I am going to pick one of ours. The reason I was pausing is because, to your point, it's like picking a favorite child, and this doesn't mean that they're my favorite, but I think the concept is really cool, and it is called Lola Beans. And it is a good energy drive-through. And so the beverage industry, it's more of like, it's not a heavy focus on coffee as much as it is the beverage industry shifts that are being seen with people wanting unique drink combinations and good energy. And like they have a clean energy, which is like a Lotus energy versus a Red Bull. So they're even like sourcing clean energy for their drinks. So it's just a really unique concept, and it is targeting Gen Z all day. And so it's really fun to do because they're an outlier.
Yeah. I love that. What trend do you think every franchise marketer should currently jump on?
Well, for franchise development, LinkedIn marketing is the biggest missed opportunity every single day. And to build a brand and a founding story and a presence on LinkedIn and to have a daily piece of content it is so evident the lack of content creators on LinkedIn, because a post today will live on LinkedIn for weeks. For weeks, and you will see people comment on it because there is so many people that are consuming content and so few content creators on LinkedIn. They also just announced that they're potentially going to ban TikTok on the 19th of January. Now, my guess would be that they overturn that again. However, and it's so clever that it's the day before the new president takes office and all the rhetoric of all the things. However, today, social media, the content creation lane of Instagram and LinkedIn is so underutilized, and for brands to invest in creating valuable content for people. It is still today, like people used to sit around the table, Paul, and say, do we really need Facebook? What's this Facebook thing? And now Facebook, it's great. You need it for ads. You need it for lead management, business accounts. But if you do not have a TikTok strategy, arguably if they stay in business, if you do not have an Instagram and a LinkedIn, it is 2024.
Yeah. The thing on LinkedIn I'm fascinated by, I get outreach all the time. It's automated DMs saying, hey, Paul, we are trying to open a territory there. Would you like one? And then you click on their page and they haven't posted a piece of content in 3 months. And I'm like, if the company page was posting more content, specifically because it's a great place for fran dev. It's professionals with the money who could potentially want to jump career and build a thing. If you were putting out more content, I would be 1,000% more likely to respond to you if I saw the last 3 case studies of how your franchisees are making $1 for every dime they invest, right? Yes, that'll get long if we keep going down that path.
You reach out to me and you're like, hey, do you want to be on the podcast?
It's
such a valuable tool to network and build your audience and connect people. And people are so much more approachable than you think. Just DM the people that you admire. Ask them a question.
That's what I did. I think I told you that. I was like, hey, you've done some really cool things. I want to talk about this with you. Do you want to do it while we record it? And here we are. And then just the last thing, I'm always curious, what's something people don't know about you? And I think you're an open book, so this might be a difficult question for you.
I try and be transparent because that is...
it's an easier life.
It is an easier life, and I think it's a rare form of leadership. People talk about transparency, however, they rarely live it. It is very difficult to embarrass me because I do have a healthy ego. However, I keep that ego and her in check daily. And I am humbled every single day by what I don't know because of the development lane I'm seeking in life. I would say a fun fact about me that I have never shared on a podcast is my grandmother, my dad's mom, had 14 children.
Oh, wow.
Who had 55 nieces and nephews. So I have 55.
Oh my goodness.
No, let me get this right. 35. I have 35. I just wrote this down. I have to look because it has to be accurate.
So like, did you guys have to rent a barn to celebrate a holiday?
We did. We did the Holiday Inn.
Okay.
Around the pool of Hayes, Kansas.
Oh gosh.
You smelled like chlorine, and there were crock pots and 3.
Oh, crock pots all over the place. Yeah.
And 3 literally hotel rooms of the Holiday Inn, and kids with wet butts would sit on the beds, and then there was nowhere to stay. So So my grandmother, she had 14 children.
Okay.
31 grandkids, 30 first cousins, 30 first cousins on the site. There are 55 great grandkids. And there are 4 on the way. So soon to be 59 great grandchildren. And there are 3 great grandchildren. This woman is 94 years old. 31, 55, 4 on the way, and 3. Truly, that's what?
86, 90, 93.
There was 38 and 55.
38 and 55 is
96?
63. Yeah, 96, I think. Yeah, I was right from the beginning. There we go.
So there are 96.
Jeez.
Little
direct relatives, offspring to my one grandmother. This is why you can manage a franchise system. You can manage a family of 100 people.
She is the ultimate franchise. Cecilia Budke in Hayes, Kansas had 14 multi-unit franchisees. Had 31 franchisees underneath them. Had 55 grandbabies, and now 3 greats.
Well, we dedicate this episode to Cecilia. Thank you for what you've brought into this world. Wow, that is a crazy fact. Thank you for sharing that, and that is wild. I bet there's a lot of stories that come out of that.
Oh, yeah. More drama than a franchise brand.
I can imagine. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic, Brooke. I always like to, at the end, like a late night talk show host, take a minute to pitch anything you want to pitch, talk about momentum, talk about what's next for you, what you're excited about.
Yeah, I would. That's great. I would love to. So at Momentum Brands, we have platinum partnerships. And it's simply put, we work with you every single week, and we are the CEO's secret weapon. We come in and serve as the fractional CMO and brand director, and we essentially report direct to the CEO, president, or founder. And we help you work on the business and scale it with distinction and swagger and speed while you are running your business. And you have a lot of irons in the fire and fires to put out every single day. We are the easiest non-employee you'll ever have, the most positive, and the people that are actually going to help you build your business. So it's so damn infectious. It is so fun. I have a rule of I'll never work with an asshole ever again in my life. So if that's you, don't apply. We get to partner with some phenomenal brand leaders, up and coming businesses, and transform their life and their business. And what a great honor and passion of mine, because that's how I live my own personal life. So if I get to give people a taste of the water, come on. Yeah. It's never work. Like, jump in. Really fun. Jump in. Yeah. So themomentumbrands.com, we have a email list that is growing so rapidly. I would have never have guessed, but it makes sense because there's a gap in marketing infrastructure and intelligence for emerging franchise brands. We have 600 brands that have signed up in 5 months. Awesome. You can access it on our website. It's called The Sauce, and we give the secret sauce for franchise marketing. And it's a weekly newsletter with consistent high quality information. And if you're not ready to be a partner of ours, like, the newsletter will be like your guiding light too. So we have resources for come one, come all, come many.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Brooke, thank you again so much. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I genuinely mean that. Everybody else, thanks for listening today. I hope you all found it as exciting and honestly informative as we did. And stay tuned for the next episode of Behind the Franchise. We'll be back again.